Hey, you ever wonder why all of the black representatives or representation on television seem to swing a certain way?
Joining us now with this breaking news coverage is Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, Vice Chairman of the Senate Intel Committee. He is part of the...
Isn't that strange? That all of our left-leaning news seems to only support a certain kind of black individual? Isn't that weird?
On-screen gaffes, sexist
Could
comments,
that be-
and his
Could that be for coincidence?
17 years with CNN, Don Lemon didn't just report the
Isn't that strange? Like 95% of them are all the same. And then they get rid of one and they hire two more. Isn't that weird? Why do you think that is? You think that that they're our friend? You know, when I was growing up in the 80s, my mom sat me down in front of a television and asked me, she turned the TV on and said, count the black people. And she turned it on and walked off. And I said, okay. And I sat there for half an hour. No black people on TV. This is 1985. You know, we were very few and in between. And if and when we were on television, we were put in, typecast, if you want to say that, to a certain kind of role. You were a thug, right? You were a servant or server, poor. You were gay. Or you were a womanizer. Thug, servant, server, gay, womanizer. And now, you know, we call that at blaxploitation. It's probably under a different term. But isn't it strange that those things that they represented us as were the most detestable things society saw? And we were associated with those detestable things. And we've always been associated with detestable things. If you look at history, when it comes to the prohibition of marijuana, prohibition of alcohol, African Americans have been used to demonize those things, to get what the government wants through fear. Fear, right? So now, what do we have? We have this term woke. And that term woke, you know, if you are part of our community, doesn't mean anything other than being aware, understanding what's going on. You know, that's it. That's all woke means. That's it. But once the right, and I'm not a right or left leaning person, but once the right got a hold of it, what did they do? They attached transgenderism to it. They attached homosexuality into it. They attached defund the police. They attached chaos. So if you talk to someone, their understanding of what woke is skewed, right? Because of this basic hijacking of this term and redefining it and then attaching it to who? Us. They attach it to us. Attach it to black people because black people have been associated and attached to the most detestable things. So my thing is, why is it that these individuals are okay with being typecast, being hired, being displayed as representatives, knowing, because they're not stupid. This is Don Lemon. He's not dumb. Knowing that they were hired because they were gay and black. They were hired for that specific reason. So these other individuals, after Mr. Lemon is gone.
Joining us now with this breaking news.
This guy just showed up out of nowhere, right? Flaming black gay. This guy's always been gay. He's been here. Every other male, MSNBC, CNN, whatever, every single other male, all of them, except for, I think on CNN, he retired. He was also, but we very rarely get a representation. So what does that do to our community? Right? What does that do to our community? Our little boys are looking up. They want to be successful. They want to be on TV. And they're seeing this kind of influence. So I know a lot of you are going to argue about whether it is or is not detestable. But at the same time, simultaneously, our Blanco friends are changing laws, Roe v. Wade, drastically changing laws in order to get their numbers up. What numbers? Birth rate. The birth rate is like somewhere around 1.5 to 1.7, I think. And every human group on the planet needs to, I'm going to look this up. They need to maintain 2.5. I'm going to look this up, Mr. Gemini. What is the birth rate to maintain a population? You can do this yourself. I believe it's 2.5, 2.1. So every woman, on average, needs to have 2.1 babies in order to simply overcome the natural death rates of that population. So heart attacks, car accidents, all of these things. Every single woman needs to have 2.1 on average in order just to maintain that population. So if you have a hermetically sealed room and you start with a population of 100 and you have deaths, a certain amount of deaths, this is, I believe it's annually. You got to have 2.1 to overcome that just to maintain 100 people in that room. I believe our Blanco counterparts are somewhere around 1.7. I'm going to look that up too. What is the 2020? I'll put 2025. Birth rate of Caucasian Americans. I spelled Caucasian wrong because there's a U in there somewhere. But they're Asian. All right. So of 2025, that rate is at 1.5 to 1.6. Right? So those numbers, their population, and they're not ringing the bell publicly. They're not screaming and saying, we need to have babies. They're trying to subtly change laws and culture. And that's why you're seeing the right with a lot of strange legislature, overturning Roe v. Wade. You have a lot of like this taxation thing that's coming out for women. They're trying to pass this bill where women have to either have babies and be married by a certain age or get taxed a lot. And they really don't want to set an alarm because other people are going to figure it out. And I think the cat's out of the bag. What is the birth rate? Because African Americans, what is it for African Americans? It's below 2.1 as well. Used to be a lot higher than that when I was growing up. Yeah, 1.5 and 1.6, right? So if you know anything about history, this country has been trying to destroy us since we got our freedom. They've been trying to destroy us in one way or another. They've used AIDS. They've used crack, drugs, right? They've used abortion. It's been wildly successful. Margaret Sanger, she's that eugenics program. Look into that. What is it? Planned Parenthood was specifically designed in America to kill off the black Americans. And that's why you saw them market it so much in our neighborhoods. And it's killed a lot of black people. That's why our population is stagnant here in the United States. You see the Mexican population grow, you see the white population grow, and you might say, well, that's because they shipped a bunch of white people here, 60% of them here in what was that, the 20s, in the early 1900s, and Mexico just right down the street. But our rate has not grown at similar rates like Asian and Far East Asian and all that stuff. So anyways, long story short, a lot of black people like to lean left. I'm not saying lean right, but when the left has a knife and the right has a gun, there are no good guys. And so a lot of the arguments when it comes to the left and the right likes to say, hey, you guys are being used. We don't like you, but they don't like you either. And the left is that doctor with that knee reflex little hammer. They know where to hit us to get us to react. So just a little food for thought. Everything's cool and inclusive, but when you start seeing trends like this, you have to understand that this isn't on purpose, or this isn't happenstance. This is done purposefully. So there's that.